Okay, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here once again, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. As you guys may already know, this is a show where I talk to some really cool people. Anybody who's doing something very interesting in the music industry, I have them on the show because I just love to explore their creative mindset. And today I'm very excited because I have somebody that I've been looking forward to interviewing and talking with for a couple weeks now. And again, I say this in a lot of episodes, but I try my best to be picky on who I bring on the show because it doesn't really matter, what they're doing or who they've worked with. My opinion is I want to talk to people that I feel are game changers or that do something slightly different and that hopefully can offer a different perspective. And I know that today's guest he definitely falls in that category. I have my man, Tynan. I mean, Kevin is your real name, but I have Tynan joining me on the show. How are you, man?
Man, I'm good, just getting by.
Just hanging out, getting by, waiting out this very bizarre time that we're living in. By the way, did I
Yeah.
pronounce your name correctly? Is it Tynan?
Yes, it is actually. Uh,
Excellent.
can't tell you how many people are like Tynan or like, oh man, or like even back in the day, years ago I had the spelling TYNVN,
Ooh.
and not a lot of people knew that the V was supposed to be an A. So a lot of people would call me, Tin Van or Tiny Van or
Tiny
it's
van. You should have changed your logo to this just tiny little like mystery machine type of van just to mess with people.
If I had a better branding mind, I definitely would've.
I'm selling you that idea. You can keep it for free. Just add a
Okay,
little van. But
okay, yeah.
I'm curious, man. How have you been holding up in this time period? This is something I've been asking a lot of people, just because I feel like in our lifetimes, especially in the music industry, nobody has ever experienced something like this before,
No,
where we're kind of locked down, and even though things are starting to kind of open up again, the music industry is probably going to be the last one. At least it feels like it's going to be the last one to go back to normal. So I'm curious for you, how have you been holding up?
well
How's this whole
well, I think
pandemic
it's
thing?
it's I think it's less that it's obviously going to take a long time for things to go back to normal, but it's more that, it's more about finding ways that we can facilitate, what do you call it? So I'm trying to
No, no worries, dude.
trying to think of, like, big words, to make me sound smart,
I do the same thing all the time, man.
uh,
I don't have a big
it's
vocabulary. I just don't. I don't have it.
right. I'm trying to, like, do the New York Times to, like, increase my vocabulary for some reason, or, like, New York Times crossword to increase my
Ooh,
vocabulary.
yeah.
It's
That
it's kind of working.
it makes me feel
Uh,
smart anytime I do one of those, but
yeah,
I
right?
barely have the patience to do it.
He he's such a the guy that makes the New York Times crossword is such a little he's a little stinker. Uh,
I don't know who it is, but I agree. I agree. They're like
uh,
it's always the most randomest words too.
yeah, it's always, like, pun answers or, like, answers that you look at and it's like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but just,
I
uh,
agree, man. Which is why I just kind of I try to do it to make myself feel smart, but it doesn't last very long. It just doesn't.
right? But, I mean, going back to the original or what I was trying to say earlier is that, I mean, it's the music industry right now, it's about finding a way to stay afloat, finding a way to survive, to make it past this. And it sucks because a lot of people, they don't have a way to carry over until or, hold off until things come back to normal. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there's also the question of, what is normal going to be? Like, I mean, it might be years until we're fully back to normal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very,
It's just an interesting time. I'm curious. What do you think? What do you think it's going to look like later next year? And the reason why I'm asking this, it's I know that there are some management teams or just teams in general that are planning or doing their best to plan some type of shows or small little tours late next year, like in 2021, and there are already talks about how
yeah,
that might work. I'm curious for you, like, what do you think it's going to look like around this time a year from now?
man,
It's
it's
hard to
so
guess. I'm
hard
just
to
curious what
say.
you think.
It's, ah, I, I will say that if we're keeping in this trajectory, I would imagine there would be more people would adapt to the drive-in slash pod experiences. Um, I will say, as this past weekend, I did one of the pod shows in uh, Phoenix, Arizona, with Kazo and Sullivan King. I
Nice.
gotta say that was actually a very promising layout
Really?
in terms of just being able to have like some sort of normal show. But I would say, I don't know, for the time being, it'll be the bigger production companies or the people that have access to, like, say, a drive-in um, area that will be the ones putting on shows somewhat consistently throughout the next year. But then again, who knows? I could be talking out my ass. We, in two
I feel like
months,
we all do that,
things could
man.
be, yeah, 2 months, things could be 1,000. Like, it could be totally different. We don't know.
Yeah.
It,
Well, I'm curious because I have not been to one of those pod experiences. I know it's a brand new thing that they're experimenting with a lot of. I know out here in LA where I'm based, I think they're trying to toy with that with the Hollywood Bowl. I think they're trying
mhm,
to figure a setting that would work there. But I'm curious,
yeah.
like that the whole pod experience. Describe it to me a little bit. Is everybody? Do they have like
Uh,
basically like little cubicles or something? And everyone's just sitting in their own little spot. How does it work?
yeah. Yes. It is. At least the one in Phoenix. People are separated into pods that are 6 feet apart. Um, the pods are just like kind of little areas with a rail that you can, go up to, headbang on. It's just a way. uh, It's it's hard to explain it. It's it's
It's
hard to
easier to
explain
see
because
it.
like, it's easier to see. It's easier to see it because the scale of it is huge. First off, like to fit that many people, socially distanced. Uh, you need like a big, big, big open area to do it. First
Mm.
off, but I mean, it looks cool. People were people were being responsible because at the end of the day, it goes back to the responsibility of the people going to these shows to stay within your pod and
Yeah.
adhere to
The
the
rules and the
rules. Yeah.
guidelines. Yeah. I'm curious for
Um,
you performing when you did the show. I imagine it was a different experience just because obviously it's a very different thing to do.
oh,
Just like I've
yeah.
imagined like the drive-ins are very different too. But in your perspective, when you were up there performing, what was your takeaway? Did you feel like people were really digging it? Was the vibe the vibe I imagine is different, but like I guess I'm
Uh,
trying to figure out what your perception was of like the audience takeaway from this new setup, and if your
um,
perspective too.
well, I think at this point, what, like 8 months into
God damn, man, 8 months. Holy shit. Yeah,
8 months into this, at this point, people are just starved for anything. So,
yeah,
I mean, the drive-in raves were a huge deal. People love, or it seemed like people were super into them. But this pod experience, uh, at least the people in the crowd were even more. I, I, I have no way to compare, how the people in Phoenix looked in the pods compared to how they looked in the drive-throughs. But or the drive-in raves. But I will say the people at the Phoenix show, they just looked so excited to like finally be like in some semblance of normal.
I bet.
So I mean at least for the for the first few months of pod shows being a thing, people are going to be super stoked about it. I think because it is some sort of return to normalcy.
Yeah,
Uh,
I bet. I mean, I would love to go one. And Phoenix is a
mhm.
little bit out of the way for me here in LA. But
Oh, yeah.
in your experience, were you a little nervous to do it by any chance? I mean, I know that you're an experienced
Oh yeah.
performer, but I imagine
Oh
this is like a new thing, you know?
Oh, no, as somebody that is very concerned about the entire pandemic, somebody that's, following everything that's going on, I'm always concerned about going out and playing shows. I really want to make sure that, like, every show that I play is, um, staying within the guidelines of this whole pandemic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, dude. And I
so I
imagine
don't know.
that when you saw that they were following the guidelines, it probably made you happy. I'm
Oh, yeah.
curious. I'm curious for you because well, let me ask you this. Did you spend most of the pandemic, because I know right now you're in Oklahoma City. Is
Yeah.
that where you spent most of this time, or have you been kind of transferring back and forth between different towns?
Oh, so I'm based out of Oklahoma City. Like, me and my entire team are out here. So yeah, no, I've just been in Oklahoma City this entire time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
How has the city taken this whole shutdown? Because I imagine that, and again, I've asked this to everyone that's been on the show because I'm generally curious how the vibe is across at least the United States. And I'm based in the West Coast, and a lot of people are
yeah.
based out here in the West Coast or in New York, or like Nashville. And so
Mhm.
to me, it seemed like a lot of the major metropolises, at least the entertainment hubs, tend to behave in a similar way. But Oklahoma City, this is the first time I've had someone from OKC here, and I'm
Yeah.
curious, what was the vibe like in that city? Were people receptive to the shutdown? Were people upset about it? Were people disagreeing about what was going on? Like, I'm just curious, in your perspective, what was the overall vibe towards this pandemic in your city?
Um, it's it started off as most places as very like blase. People were like, the first like few weeks, people were very serious about it. Really, the first few months, people were super serious about it. Uh, I mean, to an extent. And then, of course, around like July, people started protesting about opening things back up.
Yeah,
Um, Things opened up, of course, with everywhere else. We saw a huge spike in cases in July. Um, but with mask mandates, it's becoming a little easier. It's a little frustrating seeing uh, things opening back up again right now. I
yeah,
mean, not. I mean, it's not like fully opening, but like say the other day or last week, I was driving around and I saw a school with a full uh, football field of just people practicing, nobody wearing a
man.
mask. It's just
Ugh.
it's ridiculous. And then you see news reports of cases, you know, uh, cases rising, having uh, what you call it, uh, in one day having the most hospitalizations over the entire
Mm,
pandemic. And then you see people responding to it like, "Oh, I guess masks aren't working, so we should stop the mask mandate." It's like, no. The problem is that you fuckers aren't wearing masks in the first place.
yeah,
The problem is that there's no real
accountability.
yeah, there's no real accountability. Nobody is being charged for not adhering to mask mandates or social distancing mandates. Uh, it's left up to the people to be responsible, and man,
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
You know what I think it is, and I could be wrong. I'm just speculating, but I think it's because the disease or the pandemic that we're dealing with, COVID-19, it's one of those where it can be absolutely horrendous, but you only can see that if you've had someone in your life that actually has
Exactly.
suffered through that. And the
It,
thing is, I have a couple people very close to me. And I'm not going to say who they are, just out of respect to their families, but like I
yeah,
have a very close friend whose I think uncle or I'm sorry, their dad died because of this. And then I have another friend who, when the pandemic first started, they came out of the country and their dad immediately got it and went through a very horrendous process to go through it. And so for
yeah.
me, I feel like I've been up close to it enough. Gladly, I don't have it and I've been tested many times, but
Mm,
I've been up close to it enough where I just don't fuck with it. Like, to me, it isn't
yeah,
about the rules or whatever. It's like, dude, if you've seen how bad this can be, you wouldn't even be risking yourself, dude. Like, it's insane.
yeah. No, it's I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard an interesting argument, or not argument, but perspective on this. It's that with most yeah, like with the internet age, it's very easy to see something horrific and associate that with, I don't want that to happen to me. That's bad. the problem with COVID is that the worst parts of it happen in an imp in a hot in a hospital room where you're not allowed in. The only interaction you have with somebody that has COVID at its worst is through FaceTime.
Yeah.
There is no real, like, image to associate the horrors of COVID, so, a lot of people just have either firsthand experience or, like, secondhand accounts of it, and turns out just trusting people on their word, uh, yeah, just if it's not constantly in somebody's life, people will, uh, not really forget about it, but just, like, not really care about it as much.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? You seem very comfortable being open about, your opinions and what you believe. I'm curious if you have well, I guess the simple question is, are you very much like this? Like, is this your personality that you are very much open with what you believe in? And I ask it this way because, as you get to know a lot of artists and performers, the more successful you get, I feel like there is this pattern that I find in my experiences where the less of their opinion I tend to hear and the more trained opinion I find that
Well,
is something
it's
that I don't normally find in the electronic music scene, and I'm gonna say that, and I am honest about that. But I guess in my experience, I feel like it can be a little tough to get honest opinions out of people, but not with you. You seem very, very honest and comfortable with just saying what you mean, regardless of what others might think. Am I safe in assuming that?
yeah, pretty much. It's I man, I I feel like once you get to it's so easy to once you're at a certain level, it's easy to, accidentally give the wrong or, give the wrong opinion or give, um, I don't wanna say wrong opinion, but just give a misinformed opinion,
Ah, that's
um,
good. I like that.
and, um, people will call you out on it. Uh, you know, especially with cancel culture going on so strong
Yeah.
these days, a lot of people don't want to give their opinions. But it's like if you have somewhat of an informed opinion that you believe in, fucking tell it. Like now more than ever, we need people to stand up and say this shit is fucked up.
Yeah. And that doesn't scare you at all? And I'm glad it doesn't seem like it doesn't scare you, like, that's the vibe I'm getting, but I'm wondering, because of cancel culture and the environment that we're in, does it ever cross your mind, or do you ever dwell on the possibility that one day maybe you might say an opinion that just does not work with everybody else's opinion, and therefore you might suffer something because of it? I'm not saying it's gonna happen, I'm just wondering if that ever crosses your mind.
It, I, I guess, but at the same time, I don't know. Like I,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's more like I've been I don't wanna say it's because of how I was raised, but I don't know, I like to think I was raised to be a nice, respectful person that, doesn't get into a lot of dumb shit, um,
Mm.
and I don't know, like, I I personally don't feel like I have a lot to hide, so
Ooh.
I mean, I say that, but I'm sure somebody will be like, "Oh, you did this."
Oh, dude, I love you, man. I absolutely love I love you. I love your attitude, dude. Because okay, here's my honesty. I honestly feel like your attitude is something that is needed, and it's not that you're alone in it. I feel like the vast majority of people are like you, in the sense where it isn't that there isn't nothing to hide. It's that I think most people do value the idea that your opinion should be free. That your opinion should be allowed to be said. But I think, and this is again my own personal opinion based on what I see, and I could be wrong. So if you can correct me, by all means. But what I see is, even though everybody is aware of the value of opinion, I think what is happening right now is there are so many people from all sides of all walks of life, different backgrounds, who are feeling very personally attacked. But this is nothing new. Like I feel like
Yeah.
this is something that I've experienced for a long time. Many different things, but now I think the Pandora's box has kind of been opened where it's okay to speak on anything. And what happens is people like you and me, I would say people who kind of have
Mhm.
a similar points of views, um,
Mhm.
they now realize that it's that everybody is kind of allowed to do it. So no one really knows how to handle it. The fact that everyone's kind of shouting back and forth. Whereas before, I feel like there were only like two points of views that were allowed, I guess you could say. Now, every point of view is kind of allowed, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that. That's at least what I
Well,
see, but I'm not so
I
sure.
I mean, first off, I think it's awesome that everybody's point of view can be presented. It's awesome. It opens up discussions. It's uh it's shown prejudices about myself that I didn't know I had that
Mm.
I can address and be like, okay, you know what, I can try and be better. I think the problem is that some the problem is uh a lot of people don't understand how to internet well, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I love that.
I grew up on the internet, like, in its infants no, I don't wanna say infancy, but, like, early 2000s were, like,
Yeah, the
it's like
golden
the wild
days, man.
it
Those
was
are the
the
golden
Wild
days.
West. Like,
Yeah.
uh, you know, you could just it wasn't that you could do anything, it was that a lot of
Well, what were your experiences, by the way? Not to sidetrack, but like when you were growing up on the internet, what were some of the things that you were doing? Were you like on 4chan? Were you like on Newgrounds? Like, what were you
uh,
looking into?
I mean, I was on 4chan a little bit, but I don't know, that
That's crazy. That was a crazy. It still is a crazy place, but yeah,
yeah, I don't know, it was just too unrestricted for me, if that makes sense. It was too unstructured, and
yeah.
I like having some sort of structure in my internet time. I'm sure I sound like an old, boring person when I say that, but I I honestly can't remember. I just like back in those days, it was a lot of just looking up videos or just trying to pass time. Really, looking up
Yeah.
information on Wikipedia because I'm weird and just like to go down Wikipedia rabbit holes
Mm.
and find connections
Those are
of
fun,
like,
man.
especially like doing that over in like film land, like that Amazon show, The Boys?
I know of it. It's on my list to watch it.
Oh, it's incredible, first
I've
off.
heard. I've heard.
Incredible, especially the 2nd season with what's going on in today's world. It's chef's kiss. Mwah.
Ooh.
Um,
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch it today then, based off of your
uh,
recommendation.
I mean, it is a superhero show, but it's like a really well done superhero show. You'll see. But I recently found out that the guy that created that show also created the show Supernatural, which my girlfriend loves. Like,
What? He created
love,
Supernatural? What?
yeah. Um, and I just thought that was a fun connection because my girlfriend loves Supernatural and loves The Boys. I was like, it's probably because that one guy.
What the hell? I didn't know
Well,
that.
okay, he created or he, I don't want to say created The Boys, but it's like he created or he's the one that made the show, whatever. He's the
Yeah, he's
one
the
that,
showrunner, the guy who
yeah,
like
sure,
made it
there.
happen. Yeah.
That's the word. But
All these Hollywood terms.
yeah, right. But yeah, I trying to think back to those old internet days. A lot of it was just, going down those holes, finding videos, going on LimeWire, downloading a bunch of shit, listening to music, shitload. Um, but getting back to the original point though, it's that with all of this access to opinions that are different from yours, it's very easy to uh just kind of shut them off after a while and be like, that's that's wrong. That's wrong. Like,
Mm,
I know my world. Your world isn't mine. So it's different and therefore it's just not right.
mm.
Um
I guess what I'm curious is because what you're saying is true. Like I'm 100% on what you're saying. Like I 100% agree, and I grew up on all these internet rabbit holes, some that went way too deep. But
Yeah.
like here's what I find so curious is that you and I aren't alone in that. Like I feel like in our generation, and if I can ask, how old are you?
27.
Okay, I'm 29. So we
Yeah.
basically grew up around the same time. So here's my question is back in the days, I feel like every kid, or at least a vast majority of kid, because we kind of grew up on the internet, us 90s kids, we kind of had that it was born in our time, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that did the same thing. You know, we all kind of went on the internet, did all this bunch of stuff. And I feel like because of that experience for me, I'm not saying I have a filter, but it's like I know that there's so much shit out there that's just made for the sake of reaction, you know, and I know that there are plenty of people out there that just
Exactly.
they just like to troll. But yet I am so confused by how a lot of people in our age group, there are a lot of people who just seem very much, I don't know, finicky, I guess you can say. Like they're very, very triggered all the time. And I wonder, like, well, I mean, don't you remember like in middle school, like all this bunch of shit we like ran across?
Well,
Like
so I
it's
think I think the problem is that not everybody did grow up on the internet.
that is
The
true.
internet for a lot of people, the internet wasn't like a thing until iPhones or until it was brought to your phone. You could take it everywhere.
Mm.
The concept of the internet was it just lived on computers. It wasn't until we had it on our phones and it became integrated into our society that the internet came into the real world. Uh, so a lot of people that didn't grow up on it kind of just got thrown into it and are like, oh, whoa, what is all
Mm.
this?
That's a good point.
Um, Or at least that's my takeaway from it, or that's what I see at least in Oklahoma and what
Yeah.
I've seen around here.
Well, that honestly makes a lot of sense to me because I can totally see that happening uh, for someone who didn't grow up in a lot of those weird places because there's so many fucking weird places on the internet. It's there's no limit to how weird things can get.
Oh man, my favorite was fucking in college, uh fighting out about like Tor and like
Oh
the
yeah,
deep web,
yeah.
accessing it once and being like, nope, I am
Nope.
out. That is as deep as I want to go into the internet.
You know, for a while there on 4chan and a couple other, excuse me, my throat, a couple other forums that I'm not going to mention. They for a while they had all these. They would post list and list of like dark websites that you can't find anymore.
Yeah,
But I think a lot of those lists don't exist anymore. But I remember those days, those early days where the dark web was starting to become known, like because the dark web has been around for a long time. But once
yeah.
it started becoming known amongst normal people,
Mhm.
you know, if you just had to search for it once, you'd find lists and lists and lists of weird ass sites to look at, and those lists are not up anymore. They've been taken down since. But I remember my first experience in the dark web, and
Yeah.
it frightened me, but I honestly was curious. I definitely did a lot of digging. I'll be honest about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, no, I mean, it's human nature to be curious, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
And this was college time for you, right? This is what like
it's would have been like 2012.
Jesus, man, that's not that long ago, man. That's just 8 years
Yeah,
ago. But internet time,
yeah,
that feels like a long time ago.
yeah. It's it's crazy how much the internet has warped our sense of time.
I
I would,
know.
especially this year, because it feels like since we're all trapped at home, we're all on the internet all the time. So it feels like this year has been going on forever, when in reality, it's been a few months.
Yeah. Creatively wise, I'm curious. This time that
Mm.
you've spent at home and that there hasn't been that much to do, have you been feeling a little bit more creative, or do you feel a little more stuck or in between? Because everybody has a different. I guess I mean I guess what I'm saying is there. I've talked to some people who have been very creative, but I've
Mhm.
also talked to plenty of artists that are like, I just can't do it. Like I don't have any ideas right now. You know, and it can feel weird. So I'm curious for you, this pandemic and the lockdown, has it served you well creatively, or do you feel like it's been a bit of a struggle?
Um, the first few months, creatively, it was awesome. Um, I'd say the past few months have been stagnant for me. It's been more a personal thing for me though. It's more a case of like, I have a stockpile of songs that are like yeah, I have like a pile of songs that are like 99% done. I just need to go back and fix some minor mix things on it. And I have another pile that's like, these are cool ideas I could develop. And I have a even bigger pile of songs that are finished, ready to go with no idea for release. Uh, I but it ultimately boiled down to why? I
Mm.
mean, like, what's the point? I say this as somebody that has tried releasing music over the pandemic. Admittedly, could have done a better job on like this track FMSU. I could have done a better job like planning out the marketing for it, yada yada. But the track just, I mean, it did well enough, but I feel like if I would have waited and just sat on it for like another year, it would have done even better. So it's like I just guess it's more of like a motivation thing for me. Like I
Mm.
could do this, but I don't know. I just
Do you find it that is it easy for you to like wait for something? And I say that because it's not very easy for me, but through the years I've learned, through many lessons that patience sometimes is the better choice. And so I completely agree with what you're saying. Like based on what I've seen this year, I would say that there is. I think you can talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people will tell you that there's way more music coming out now than usually, and that's because,
oh yeah.
especially right now, like right now in the last quarter, normally right towards the end of November, maybe even mid November, you'd start to see like things transition to the holiday season, and labels kind of go on break and whatnot. But
Yeah, you don't really see that this year.
no, and that's the thing. That's why I kind of am interested in your opinion because, like you said, maybe you could have planned the song a little bit better. Maybe you could have waited. But the truth is, I feel like you were at a spot where a lot of artists were at, where there's all this downtime, and you can't really do much. So you have this like itch to like, hey, I got to do something for what I'm doing, and then you find out that everybody's doing the same thing more than normally. So you're kind of
Mm.
competing with everybody where you normally would not
E-
be.
exactly. So I don't know. So at this point, I've it's more of a pick and choose the right battles because every week there will be a giant list of other artists releasing tracks as well.
Yeah.
Like hell, even last week, what Subtronics' EP came out, Papa Khan's big track finally came out. And I'm sure there was a lot of other stuff that I missed. It's just every week there's so much music.
Yeah, so
It's
much.
at this point, I feel like it's more beneficial to just kind of uh, it's important to like maybe put out a single here or there, but like I think it's important to maybe sit on it for a while, maybe just kind of um uh,
Wait for
what's
a
the
better
word
moment.
yeah, wait for the right moment, I guess is the right phrase I'm looking for. Just it's um, because I will say, especially before the pandemic, I was very much on the mindset of I have to have a release like every month, or like people are going to forget about me.
Yeah.
But I'm finding more and more that like, especially now, just people. It's important to have music that's out because people need an escape more than ever these days. But at the same time, it is okay to not put stuff out right now.
Mm.
It's okay to maybe just put out this, or like if you're sitting on some weird idea that like you wouldn't normally put out, maybe put that one out.
Yeah.
I think now is the time to just, you can be a little more choosy with your releases.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, was that a hard decision to come across or to decide? Obviously you're speaking out of experience after what you experienced, but I feel like it can be very easy to fall in that trap. I wouldn't even call it a trap, but I feel
No.
like as an artist and as a musician, everybody has the same thoughts like you said. You got to make sure that you're always present, and there is a sort of, I guess, formula you can say. I'm not even sure if it's a formula, but there is a certain type of way to do things where you can continue to stay relevant. So part of me wonders, and I imagine that there is this potential fear and thought process that if I just kind of take a step back and wait for the right moment, that right moment may never come. I don't know. I'm curious if that's something that you're thinking of. And I bring it up because I feel like right now in October, when we're recording this, there's a lot of artists like you who are starting to think the same way that you are. They're starting to see that this year is very congested and
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't benefit me whatsoever to put stuff out.
Yes.
So let me just wait, even though I have that fear of waiting and that opportunity maybe never coming back. It's also not working to be stressing out about it now, you know? So I'm curious,
Yeah. No.
does it worry you at
It's
all?
it doesn't really worry me uh that much right now. Um, I mean, speaking as somebody that like I don't know, um, some of the some of my best songs or some of my like most played songs are usually songs that like I've been sitting on for maybe a year or two.
Mm.
I, it's hell, even like like really unique and innovative songs that have come out over quarantine. Some of them have been songs that people have been sitting on for a while and are just finishing up. I think it's especially now if you're just on social media all the time,
Oh God.
it's very natural to think like, oh shit, everybody's putting stuff out, everybody's doing something, so I have to do something too. Um, or I'm just I don't, after dealing with that stress for so long, and it kind of causing me to regress back to old anxiety issues and having to work through those again in the past few months. It's just not worth it. It's not
Mm.
worth it to like be constantly worried about like where am I standing with, you know, do people still know who I am? I I guarantee you people will remember you. It's just a matter of everybody's dealing with their own shit right now.
Yeah. What old anxieties are you talking about, if I can ask? I mean, I imagine it plays part to what you just said. You know, do people remember who I am? But are there other anxieties that you used to deal with that maybe you didn't deal with anymore, and then it kind of resurfaced during this pandemic?
Um,
If I can ask, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
well, those are those anxieties are more just like stuff that I've been dealing with my whole life. You know, just constantly being in my own head. You know,
I
keeping
imagine
things to
it's a very trippy
myself.
head. I imagine it's a trippy space.
It's more, you have no idea. No,
Well,
just kidding. But it's more just like it's being inside my head's not fun. It's more of just constant thoughts bouncing around, and I back in back when I was dealing with this all the time, I would call it the I mean, shout outs to Nine Inch Nails, but it's the downward spiral where it's literally one thought, like you'll think one thought, which will bounce off and lead to another thought, which will lead to another thought, which will lead to another thought. It's just like one thought of anxiety that's not really based in reality. It's just based on something in your head, which will lead to an even more anxiety inducing thought, which is not based in reality. It's just based off something you thought, which will lead to another even more anxiety inducing thought. Um, I just I fell hard back into that.
Mm,
Like early July, um, all through July, really. Say August too. Hell, even it's something that I'm only recently feeling like comfortable about again.
really?
And yeah, I mean, I attribute that to getting back on my anti-anxiety medication,
Mm.
but um, yeah, I don't know. I it's yeah,
Can I ask you
uh,
something? And I don't mean to be rude about it. And so
no,
please tell me to fuck off if I'm being too if I'm asking something I shouldn't. But when it comes to anxiety, this is something that I've heard a lot, and so I always like to inquire about it because I feel like I don't know enough about the world, and so I always want to learn something. But this is my own opinion. But well, actually, rather, let me ask: have you been diagnosed with anxiety, or is this just your own personal way of
uh,
achieving, trying to solve it?
it's actually a fun time and background. Yes, diagnosed with anxiety. Originally, was diagnosed with depression, and working with a psychologist and working through many medications, uh, found out that it was more anxiety based. It was like depression caused by anxiety.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it was it was a lot of like transitioning from one antidepressant to another. None of it working. In fact, I personally think like switching between multiple antidepressants caused some sort of imbalance in my brain that made it almost impossible to smoke weed
Ooh.
for like a long, long time. Like this was back in 2013, I think.
Shit, dude.
So for years, like it would just give me an instant panic attack, no matter what.
Holy shit, man.
And it wasn't until actually this year, uh, earlier this year when I was on the Jaws tour, yeah, everybody on that tour fucking smoked weed. So I, started smoking or like, would take a puff here and there and realized, oh,
You can
I feel
smoke.
good. I can smoke. Holy shit.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, no, this like anxiety, I have been diagnosed with it. It's something that I've dealt with for years and years. You know, it's it's something that just never really goes away. It's something
Yeah.
you kind of learn to live with it.
Interesting. I appreciate you opening up about that, man, because it's something that I don't know a lot, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but for me,
Yeah.
I feel like at least here in LA, I don't know about anywhere else, but in my experience, I hear so many people using that term. Also depression, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about anxiety here, and I
Well,
feel
I don't think it's just an LA thing. I think it's an internet thing that has kind of, I don't want to say popularized, but more it's made depression and anxiety trendy.
yeah,
Uh, it's I mean, I think it's cool that people are more open talking about it, but I do think people will kind of fall back on just saying that they have anxiety or that they're depressed as a I really don't want to offend anybody, but
well, we're being honest here. This is
it's
just our opinion.
yeah, I think it's people will fall back on it as a way to I don't want to say I don't know.
Well,
No, I take that back. I think it's just more that the internet has kind of made it trendy to be depressed or anxious.
yeah,
Because we all kind of feel like that. We're all, especially in like today's modern world, even before the pandemic, is just like it's just normal to feel kind of drained or like just feeling no emotion. And
yeah,
I think a large part of that does have to do with uh the internet kind of becoming or coming into the real world and people being on it all the time. Um
yeah.
or maybe it's more just social media.
It could be. I think I forget who it was, but there's an expert out there, and I can't remember the name, but that just talks about how even just 20 years ago, all you really had to worry about was what the news would say, and what you would read in the newspaper and the magazines, and to some
Exactly.
degree there was a filter, so to speak. Like you could still kind of live your day to day, and you would primarily focus on again what the news would say and what happened in your town or in your city. But now we literally have access to everything. So
Yeah.
it's just, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's a very wise way of saying it, with the terms like depression or anxiety. I'm nobody to tell anybody that they're not feeling a certain way. And that is definitely something I'm going
Oh,
to be
no, no, no.
honest.
I think it's just more of the it's uh it could be that people are becoming more like clinically depressed or anxious. I do think a large part of it does have to do with our constant access to information.
Yeah. Which you would think it would be the opposite. But I'm curious if you don't mind
Uh,
me exploring it a little bit. I don't want to push your buttons too much, but like,
no, no.
and again, I appreciate your openness, but when you were on antidepressants, this is you, like you said 2013 or so,
Mhm.
around that time. and then you transition to a different medication. Uh, What was the difference that you saw in the way you process things back in those days versus when you transitioned? Obviously, one of the examples you gave is that now you can smoke, which is great. But like before, I'm curious, like, do you remember thinking differently, feeling differently? I imagine so, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's kind of I would I don't think of the right way to say this. I think I would say it was more like it was that downward spiral that I was talking about before. Um, but it felt like, in normal when I felt normal, I could kind of talk myself out of it or like, pull myself out of that spiral.
Mm.
But whenever I was at that like point in my life when it felt like I was, changing medications all the time, and there were a lot of external factors that went into this as well, just with like my personal life and where I was with school and everything. But it just felt like that spiral never, like I never left it.
Mm.
I just kind of lived in it, and it was just a very dark time. It just felt like it would never get better. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm curious when it comes to were you I imagine you were, but you were you making music at the time already, like fully like you were doing now?
So I was at that point. Had just finished my first year at uh, this school in Oklahoma City called the Academy of Contemporary Music. And yeah, that was actually went to college for like music production and all this.
Oh,
So,
nice.
mm,
A well-educated man.
but
I love that.
but it wasn't like things didn't really take off for me until like 2015 ish,
Yeah.
or like things started happening. So like around that time, yeah, it was still something that I was like trying to do and trying to learn and like trying to get better at. In fact, I remember that summer where all this stuff was going down. I was working on literally one song all summer long. Like I, th- I think I think it's a good what do you call it? Metaphor for my anxiety. Like just constantly pouring all my free time into the song and worrying about it, just trying to get it perfect. Uh, when in reality, I should have just let it go
Yeah.
and moved on to a different one. And I think whenever I did quote unquote finish that song and let it go, I was able to make a lot more progress.
Mm. How does one let that go? And that's a question I actually hear a lot.
And that's it's such a tough
It
question to answer
is.
because
I mean, I imagine it's different for everybody. Like that definition of letting it
it's
go.
definitely yeah, it's definitely different for everybody. But it's huh, I guess for me it's more of just accepting it for what it is, knowing that in my like with my knowledge and where I was at the time that I could not get it better and accepting it. 'Cause I think letting go is more of just an acceptance thing more than anything, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think
Uh,
it also it's like a reflection of what you were capable of at the time. And, kind of like what you're saying, rather than I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I feel like the pattern that I see in others and in myself too, at least in the past, is this fixation over I could have done better or it could have been way better, it could have been perfect. And the key there being could have. But like the reality being
yes.
is I think the concept of letting go, at least for things in the past, uh, for me, it comes from a place where I can revisit it and really be honest about where I was, what I was capable of, and understanding that at the time that was the best I could do, and whatever happened happened, and it's cool. And then moving on from that, and I feel like that's a lesson that I myself try to implement in the present day as much as I possibly can. A lot easier said than done, but I do agree. I
Yeah.
think it's that concept of seeing it for what it is. Like if you were like I don't know how to explain it, but like if you were just some random
Yeah, I
go ahead.
yeah, I think it's just touching on what you said. I think it's very easy to like say with anything to have an idea of like what you want for it, and like you have an idea of what it should be in your head. But at a certain point, you gotta realize there's going to be some disconnect, like sometimes with what's in your head and what it actually is.
Yeah. Is this something that you
Um,
remind yourself when you're currently making music? Like, is that something that you're aware of
oh,
now all the time?
it's not aware of it all the time. I try to be aware of it and try, especially now, trying to like not be so hard on myself, but ex- just telling myself that it's okay. It's okay to this thing that you're working on to not be perfect. It's okay that, because in doing this task, or like say that song that I was working on all summer long in 2013, uh, in doing and working on it, you've learned, you've grown, you've learned, you, you're a different person uh, from when you started it. Uh,
Yeah.
it may not seem different, but you may not notice a difference. But just knowing that I don't know, knowing that you've grown and learned from it, I think is maybe knowing that you've grown and learned from your experience in some way can help with some acceptance that uh, I don't know. I might just be rambling at this point.
No,
I don't
you're
really
not,
know
dude. You're
anymore.
not. No, and I gotta say this. Excuse me. My voice is not there today. But I don't know, man. Like I've spoken to you for a little bit now, and I think one of the things that I love about you right off the back is A, your honesty, but B, you seem very self-aware of who you are. And I think that's very important because it's something that I'm not going to say it isn't common in the music industry or entertainment industry, but what I have seen and what I have experienced is that it's a lot easier to fall for a lot of the facade rather than just confronting
Yes.
yourself, you know?
Yeah. No, especially in the dance music scene.
Yeah.
It's very, I don't know. You, you kind of have to play yourself up, to kind of hype yourself up uh, in the eyes of the fans and the eyes of like just getting anybody interested. You have to hype them up and like get people to believe in it. But sometimes, uh, I don't know, it's easy to fall for your own hype, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, and lose sight of what, of like your vision or your goal or whatever it, that higher thing that you're trying to attain.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a pitfall that's easy to fall into.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a struggle to try and remain true to yourself always. Like it's a lot. It's very hard, you know, and I think I
Yeah.
don't blame anybody who chooses not to because it's just so much easier to not have to worry about it. But like someone like
Yeah.
you, in your experiences, I feel very I'm not sure how to say it, but I guess I feel very much like enlightened and refreshed speaking to you because like you're very honest about what you go through, what you feel is around you, and you just continue to move forward. And
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, even in this day and age, maybe not this year because this year is a bit of a bizarre year, but maybe prior to this year, did you ever was it ever challenging to experiment or be honest with you with your fans about what you wanted to put out in terms of music, because that's the struggle that I find is very common, you know, the balance between
Oh,
here's what I'm known for and
y-
here's what I want to put out right now, like, you know what I mean?
mhm. Well, see, I I've thought about this a lot, and I think I've kind of lucked out in that sense because I guess not really lucked out. It's just um, I mean, you gotta you gotta understand like where I've like kind of my trajectory because like my first big breakthrough was a Jungle Terror track on Dimog's New Noise in 2015.
Mm,
Uh, y- I just as somebody that's bounced around a lot, I feel like um, I try and what's the word I'm looking for? I try and just get people to expect the unexpected, at least for what I'm trying to do,
Ooh.
because in doing so, you have some sort of freedom to just do whatever you want. I mean, shit. I know a lot of people know me as a dubstep guy, but I mean, in reality, I've only made like one solo dubstep song, maybe some dubstep remixes. I guess now like two or three, a few. It's just because I've had releases on Never Say Die and dubstep releases on Never Say Die, but I've also had like fucking a weird ass house track on uh Musical Freedom and fucking uh I like to experiment with drum and bass. I've have house tracks. Uh, I've had a house track on Bite This. It's just and then a fucking like hip hoppy. I don't even know what you would call it. My most recent song on Monster Cat Rockin'.
I love that
It's
song,
just
by the way. Fucking dope beat.
thank you. That was actually one of my more proud songs. uh, but it's I don't know. I
So are you saying that you've kind of you without even thinking about it, you sort of trained your audience to expect the unexpected from you?
that's what I'd like to think. Uh, it's hard. It's obviously hard to tell if that's true or not. But
Yeah.
nah,
Well, let me ask you
because
this.
I mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, you good. What were you gonna ask?
I was just gonna ask if your mind kind of seems to want to go wherever it wants to go, and I'm curious for you then, what dictates what style of music you want to attack at the moment? Obviously there are certain, I get that as an artist you probably have obligations to certain, labels or whatever, but you also seem to be very diverse. Not only are you well educated, but you seem to be very comfortable in multi genres. And that is something I always find fascinating because it can take an average person a long time to be comfortable in one genre. So therefore, I totally understand to want to stay in that genre and be known for that genre. But you, again, based on this conversation and what I know about you, you do bounce around very well. It's one thing to bounce around, but to do it well is hard. And so I guess I'm
Mhm.
wondering, like, where does your brain go? Like, how does it decide, like, hey, I want to do this time? And does it worry that of how it's going to be received? You know?
I mean, for the most part, I'll usually just like write a song or like I'll be listening because I like to listen to it as much shit as I can. Uh, because there is a shitload of music out there that's awesome. Music in general, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to make why would you want to just stick with one thing? Why not, also expand your sound or what you're doing to other uh, BPM styles, whatever. But I think the thing that has stayed consistent though has been I like to think of it as like my obtuse approach to sound design and mix downs
Mm,
has been the consistent, and I think uh, that's what people can latch on to, and that's kind of like how I kind of gotten away with doing all of these, multiple genres and styles and whatnot. Is because I have like kind of a weirder way that I like to do my mix downs and sound design process and all of this. Or I think it comes through at least uh, song wise.
yeah. Yeah.
Or at least that's the thought that I like to think. That's the thought that gets me to sleep at night.
That and a little bit of weed now, I imagine.
Yeah. And we know.
And we know, which I'm so happy that you can actually do. I'm curious when it comes to your sound design because I love all the music I've heard from you. It's so incredibly creative, and in the dance music scene, it, I feel like one of the things that I love about it. It's how intricate the sound design can get, and a little bit of backstory from me, my man. I'm a drummer, so I come from like the pop
Oh yeah.
world, So I grew up playing drums, and I know a lot about that. And then I got
Yeah.
introduced to electronic music maybe like 2 3 years ago, and it's been a beautiful ride since then. But
Oh wow.
but as a musician myself, like it's interesting how no matter what genre you get into or what style of music you're playing, there are certain ways to go about it. You can either become very formulaic and traditional, or you can get very experimental or somewhere in between. And it is something that exists in the music world, like in the musician spectrum. Are these tendencies to kind of stick to what people know. But one of the things that really amazed me of this genre was just how intricate and free a lot of these sounds can be. And you seem to be, from what I can hear, you're like a bit of an expert when it comes to sound design. And I guess
See,
I
see,
know
the
you're about
thing
to
is,
say, oh, I don't know, but
no, it's not that I'm an expert. It's that like I know at least the base guidelines of like what exactly goes into making a sound. And in doing so, you have, you find ways to just turn it on its head or like,
mm,
do something completely different with it. Anywho, continue.
yeah, and that is the beautiful aspect of it. It's almost like an instrument. You know, when you're playing an instrument, you kind of learn the
Mhm.
basics and how it functions, and then you kind of do whatever you want with it. I'm curious for you when it comes to the sound design aspect of it. How did you get comfortable, or let me phrase it this way. You're right in the sense where it's just about figuring out how to like manipulate it and how to do stuff with it, but how did you get comfortable in messing around with it in your own way? Because
Oh,
and I bring this up because nowadays there's so many different kinds of sound design, so many plugins, so many instruments, blah blah blah, and it can be easy to kind of get stuck in the mindset of, okay, well, here's how the greats do it. Here's how like so and so
yeah.
does it. I'm gonna emulate that, and it can be easy to kind of get stuck there. But you, in my experience, are very like it obviously sounds like stuff that I've heard before, but it's still different enough where it's like, oh, that's Tynan stuff. So I guess I'm wondering, like, how did you find a way to like still get influenced from existing stuff, but yet tweak it in a way where it's like 100% yours? Like that's where I find
Well,
it fascinating.
see, I think a lot of that has to do with where I came in to dance music. Because before I was into dance music, I was into like really progressive rock, like really weirder out there rock music.
I can tell.
Uh,
I can definitely
and
tell.
a lot and a lot of it incorporated like just crazy effects that they would just do on their guitar pedals. Like this band Terra Milos. I think yeah, Terra Milos. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. It's a weird fucking spelling, but it's a weird fucking name. But their guitarist just has like an insane pedal library, I guess you would call it, just like a room full of pedals that he would just configure into these like crazy pedal boards, and
Damn.
he would turn his guitar into like a completely different instrument. It just blew my mind how these three guys, one drummer who was only using a snare, a kick, a hi hat, like a ride,
Nice. I
uh,
love
a
that.
bassist, and then a guitarist, just how this three people can make just insane soundscapes. Uh, I don't know. That was something that I'd always been interested with. Like even back in like the high school days before I really got into dance music. Um, Whenever I had a friend that like had some effect pedal or like some crazy pedal board, I'd always uh have them let me just like mess around with it so I could just create crazy sounds. And that's something that has always been fascinating to me. Just turning something simple into just chaos. Yeah, it's turning something into chaos. Um, and that's actually what drew me into dance music was, yeah, I think it was 2011. A lot of like I had a few high school friends that were like really into dubstep and tried to get me into it. And then it was Scary Monsters and Nice
Of
Sprites.
course.
Hearing hearing how you could just turn chaos into just like this super heavy, aggressive, just it was a whole new world for me. It opened the floodgates. And that was kind of like that was my introduction into dance music, and I think that's kind of why how I guess how I view things differently because I like to I don't know, I guess I just approach it from that mindset of how can I turn this one thing how can I turn this one guitar sound into this crazy soundscape?
Ooh. And do you have like when you start designing, do you have a sound in your head that you're trying to go for, or are you just kind of exploring
Mm,
it as you go?
never have a sound in my head.
Ooh, I like that.
Sometimes I'll have, like, a song idea, like, maybe a chord progression or, like, or, like, "I'm going to use the amen break here," or, "I wanna use the amen break for a build," and that's the starting point. Uh, I like to keep my starting points as simple as possible, so it keeps it open-ended. You never know where it'll end up, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting because I feel like you come from this instrumental background. And by the way, did you play guitar? Is that what you were saying?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yeah, I actually started off playing drums, like, I was 10 to the,
And then you wanted to be the guy that
y
all the girls wanted, right?
Oh, yeah, no, because I was an awkward kid, and I was like, "Oh, if I play, music, the girlies will love me." Turns out, uh, if you're an awkward kid and you learn, how to do music well, you'll just be an awkward adult who knows how to do music well.
Oh, I love that. That is so true. That actually happens, and I know that. I can attest to that. We're all awkward kids, man. Come on, all of us musicians, we're
Yeah.
all
Oh,
awkward.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's my favorite part about the dance music scene is that especially in the bass music section of dance music, is that, it comes from, the artists are more of the, they wanna do everything themselves. So, like, befriending artists is easy because we all have that same nerdy kid in us that just wants to explore what they love.
Oh, I love that, man. And it is true. And I love that about this world, and me speaking I mean, I feel like we have this rapport because I know you're a guitarist and I'm a drummer, but
Yeah.
speaking from my experience, and it's not the same experience as everybody, but I've always kind of been a bit of a jack of all trades where I do a lot of different things. And so that
Mhm.
transfers over to music. I've always been interested in a lot of things, even though I come from a traditional like jazz Afro-Cuban background. And I've said this in other interviews before, but one of the interesting things that I discovered by being involved in this world is even though music like jazz, while to most people it just sounds like noise, but when you're in the world of jazz, it's supposed to be this very
Huh.
intricate and almost free type of form, depending on the subgenre
Yeah.
you're in. But
Oh, yeah, that's the beauty of jazz.
it is the beauty of jazz, and I love it. But one of the things that I found from being in that world, which again, it's my experience, it's not the same for everybody, but it's one thing I observed
Mhm.
kind of from like an outsider's point of view, is that even though you're in that world and it's very freeing, that freedom only really applies to jazz. And you find that a lot of
Mhm.
jazz musicians don't like or are not encouraged to explore outside of that genre. And it's very much like you only do jazz and jazz is king. And it's a very hard style, so I can see where the pride comes from, but it can be limiting in that aspect where there isn't a lot of exploration outside of that. And so when I, started
Huh.
playing more pop and started playing other things, I started finding, and I learned the hard way, I found beauty and different types of creativity and other types of genre. Like I had never played singer songwriter styles before I played,
Mhm.
professionally. And then I started
Yeah.
finding all this intricacy, but that was different. It wasn't the same kind of, playing a million notes on my kit on Jazz Kit. It was more of
Yeah.
like intricacy when it comes to singer songwriter style. So when I got introduced to electronic music, to me it blew me away because I found this sense of freedom in terms of sound that I had never experienced before. And I was introduced to all this complex and just cool stuff. And I couldn't believe that people like you were
Well
making it. It was
well,
insane.
here's an interesting question, though. Um, how we view jazz from, like, the 30s, 20s, like, kinda more intricate jazzy stuff, is that how we will view bass music now in 50, 60, 70 years?
Ooh, that is a very good question. I don't know.
Like, where it's like, uh, there'll be a small group of people that, like, still love it and, like, the older crowds that, like, appreciate it, but, like, younger kids will just listen to it and be like, "This is just noise." Is that how? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it happens a lot. I mean, it would be lying if we said that it never happens, but in almost every style of music, it evolves.
Oh,
Every decade it evolves into something else. I mean, I don't know many people that are still listening to doo-wop music. You know what I mean? But that was
Yeah,
like pop. That
right.
was pop 50, 60 years ago. And
Yeah, but I think the cool thing about jazz though at that time was that it was so in its own world. Like,
yeah,
sure, sure, other genres would take influence from it, or like jazz, would in turn take influence from other genres, but it very much existed in its own world. Man, this is kind of blowing my mind thinking about this because that's kind of how bass music is in right now.
yeah,
It's it may not be super accessible to the outside world, but like in its own realm, I don't know, it's an interesting thing to think about. Obviously, like the fandom is night and day difference.
right.
Well, but I don't know. It's interesting to think
It
about.
is. It tickles my brain a little bit, and I'm glad that you went there because the thing about music that I love, and it's one of the main reasons why I ended up doing it in the first place. It's that in at its core, music. It's in my opinion, it's supposed to be this freedom of expression. It's a language in its own, but it's a language that can be expressed billions of different ways depending on who it comes from. And I've learned through my life, how easy it can be to get closed off because music can be difficult to learn and to do. And so once you reach this pinnacle of skill level, I can see how it's easy to kind of get like proud of that and not really want to move past that. But one of the things I love about what you're
See, like I've never understood that. Like I've never understood just being like finding like getting big off of making one sound and being like, "Yep, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life."
it happens though,
It's
man.
like it's like the equivalent of having an office job, but just cooler.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something that's never really appealed to me.
And I'm glad it doesn't because it's people like you that have helped me. And I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I'm still a musician, obviously, but I've experienced so many different things over these past 4 or 5 years that I feel like I am a lot more curious than I ever have been in my life before. Whereas before, when I was younger, I was very much focused on attaining a certain type of skill level. And then I get to the skill level, and then you're kind of like, well, where now? I can just keep getting better at this. And maybe, and that's a thought. And here's the thing, I don't know for sure if this is a thought for everybody, but I know that for me, I did feel like I was hungry for more, but not for what I was currently doing. I was just in this space where, like, all right, I know I'm a good drummer now and I'm good at this style, but like, is there more? And I would just see around me, people were like, oh, yeah, there's more jazz. There's just more jazz, more to do here. And I'm like, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
boring for me now. And I felt bad saying that it was boring. You know what I mean? And so it took me a couple years to gain confidence in being able to break away from that and just start liking things that normal musicians would not like, hence like bass
Oh
music
yeah.
or electronic music, and again,
Yeah.
not every musician's like this, but some are. And I guess for me, I feel like what you're doing and what, electronic music and even other genres too, what they help me do, and I hope it helps other musicians do, is to like just be open about the limitless amount of possibilities that can happen, you know?
Oh yeah. No. First off, I appreciate that. Second off, it's yeah, no, it's I don't know. I guess like we've been saying this like what past oh wow.
God damn, yeah,
It's
no,
already been
it's been a while. I
I
apologize. I
just
normally would have stopped it by now, but it's been
oh
good,
no, dude,
man.
I'm fully into this. No, it's just like we've been saying. It's very easy to just yeah, get stuck.
Yeah.
Uh, so I do think it's important to as often as you can uh step out of your comfort zone. Try and approach things from a different way.
Yeah.
You know, um constantly uh just evolve because if you I mean, it's it's what it is. Music, everything, art, it evolves, it changes,
Yeah.
it reacts to the times. It's it's something like if you just stay art constantly evolves, and if you don't evolve too, then you're just going to be in the same place,
Yeah.
you know?
I agree. So I'm curious for you,
Uh,
what other styles are you kind of messing around with right now? Because I imagine someone like you is probably always keeping their ear on random ass shit, So I'm wondering like what
well,
stuff are you
okay,
getting
I will
into?
I will say much like the internet, there is a line where I'll be like, okay, that might be too far. um, I like right now, what do I have? I gotta turn around and look at my board of songs I need to work on. Um, right now, like the stuff that I need to finish up, it's more. I guess it's more traditional. I have some more like melodic ideas that I've been toying with. More like just almost songs and like trying to use live instruments or like sampling live instruments. They're more like chilled out songs, but I feel like there's something there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's kind of neat. I don't know. I guess it's less focusing on just one. Less focus on what genre or like what BPM am I going to do, and more focus on what song am I going to write? How am I feeling? How can I turn this feeling into something listenable? This frustration or this depression that I'm feeling, this anxiety. How can I convey it in music? And it's not something that if you're just casually listening to it, you'll be like, "Oh, this person was anxious when they were making it." It's more it's more just like, I don't know, just trying to draw from feeling instead of just sitting down and thinking, "I'm going to make this song." That makes
Yeah,
sense?
that makes perfect sense. And I feel like that's the best way to approach it. I think that's because you're not limiting yourself to anything. You're just being very much open to what you could potentially make, what your soul or your energy is feeling at that time, And I think
Exactly.
that's the I feel like that's how most good songs are made. Not all, but I do feel like they usually
Yeah,
start from a place like that.
yeah. I mean, I mean, literally, if you listen because, like, in terms of writing, I've maybe written, like it's I consider them more like sketches, what I'm making right now, just more like
Ooh, I
trying to
like
make
that.
sounds because I'm not really don't really have any ideas for like a song, but when like last few songs I like tried to sit down and create, they were definitely more like melancholic and depressed, which I think definitely reflected the mood that I've been in for the past like few months. But now that I'm kind of bouncing back, I would like to think soon I'll be making more normal stuff. Who knows? We'll see.
I love that, man. I love that. Tynan, I appreciate your time and your openness. I feel like
You appreciate my time in?
your timing. Tynan, I appreciate your timing. Oh my God, we could write a song right now and just have it all rhyme with
Yes.
that.
What's all rhyme with Tynan? We got uh
Hang on.
Ryman, uh Skyping.
Yeah, you want me to
That's
you want me to
that's a
spit a beat
stretch.
right now? Just go.
Well, my name is Kevin, and I'm here to say
I,
it's fun to rap in a Kevin way.
yes. Oh, I love you. Jesus, man. You're absolutely you're great in all the ways. You're insane in so many ways, but in a good way. And I love your energy, dude.
Ah,
You're just absolutely
thank
phenomenal. I mean, I'm a fan of what you do. I'm a fan of your music and getting to know you firsthand, to get to know like just how honest you are and your energy and how you apply it to your music. I think that
you.
speaks volumes, and I don't know. It's
Thank
just
you.
it's always refreshing. I mean, you're welcome, but like it's an honest observation. I don't say this about everybody, but I do feel like it's something that needs to be commended because it's needed, more and more these days. And to know that that's where you come from, it's just refreshing.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. I love you too. I didn't want to leave you hanging.
I appreciate the compliments and well, I mean, there's not much more. I mean, there's literally a million things that I would love to know, but I think this is a good place to end the conversation. I think I would love.
Yeah.
I know we already kind of talked about it just for a brief second, but if maybe we can take a brief moment just to. Is there another song or anything else that you're working on that you're not planning on releasing yet, or that's something in the horizon?
Yeah, there's always something, you know, on the horizon.
The horizon is always
I've got
endless. It's limitless.
yeah. Um, I mean, the stuff I'm just trying to wrap up now. I've got this melodic EP that, admittedly, I jumped the gun on trying to hype people up on it. Like I finished the songs, or at least the like songs without the vocals. I finished them like in June ish, and I was like so excited and was like, yes, yes, yes. And then the more I went back and listened to mix downs, it was like, oh shit, I need to. These are all wrong. These are all wrong. These need vocals, all this stuff. So, so I do have a melodic EP that is in the works, coming eventually. I have a track with the singer from Under Oath, Aaron
Nice.
Gillespie, that I'm finishing up. Um,
Nice.
got going to try and plan out like to do a heavier EP.
Ooh.
This is more about like finding the cool concept to kind of fit everything into. I'm compiling stuff for another sample pack,
Oh,
which
nice.
I want to make this next sample pack like a supersized one with just like a bajillion weird ass sounds. So
Shit, man.
I can just be like, boom, here you go. I don't have to make another sample pack for like 2 years. Have at it.
Well, actually, I'm curious. How do you go about planning a sample pack? Do you just sit there and just make
Well,
random sounds, or do you take stuff from
well,
like what you've made?
oh yeah, no, the first like 3 sample packs that released with Splice were all basically just going through projects from songs that I had released in like a year prior, like 6 months to a year prior to the release of the sample pack. Uh, so it would just be like, one shots or like just fills that I made or like drums that I made for just or for just songs that I had released. But now I'm trying to do more like actual original samples for like this next pack, and trying to create just like a giant sampled library that I'm also drawing from and making these upcoming tracks.
Ooh,
So
I love that. And do you just
it,
do you basically make him through like Serum or other plugins?
I honestly only use Serum for like I honestly don't use Serum that much anymore.
That's something I've been hearing a lot lately. I feel like that was the case two
It's
years ago, and then now it's kind of I don't know. Depends.
it's like if I have a sound in my mind that's like, oh, I just need like I need like a respace really quickly, or like I need a pluck, I'll just go in and make it in Serum. But for the most part, like all the crazier sounds, I just usually compiling weird plugins, just like instances of it. Like this one plugin I have called Backmask. Uh, just from looking at a picture of it, you would have no idea what it does. But it's a like granular slash beat slash chaos reverser. Like
What?
it reverses the sound. Like it analyzes what sound is coming in and will reverse it based on like whether it's beats or by grains or just chaotic. Using that can be really fun if you want to like take a sound that and just fuck it up so you can like sample it and do other stuff to it. Um, I totally lost where I was going with this. Oh, yeah. So it's just no, it's just stuff like that.
I love it.
Taking unused sounds from projects or songs I've put out, and then can uh further fucking with them, or just the possibilities are endless. I There's this one plugin that I need to download where it turns images into sounds.
What?
Like literally like a picture of a parrot. You just import it and boom, you will that's how a parrot will sound.
How? Like, does it just make it into like a spectrogram view,
I
and then it just?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
That's what I would
I
imagine.
mean it's kind of the if you use FL Studio, I think Harmer kind of has the same uh or Harmless?
I
No,
think it's Harmer.
Harmer?
It's Harmer.
Yeah, Harmer has the same like kind of basic thing. But I don't know, this one looks a little like it's just a plugin just of that. So I'm curious to try it out. I mean, they sold me when they were like when the product description says, "Do you want to know what the color blue sounds like?" And I was like, "Yes, I do want to know what
Whoa.
the color blue sounds."
Yeah. Have you heard it yet?
No, not yet. I still need to
Oh,
download. It's a free plugin though. I really need to.
I gotta
Ugh.
find out what the name is of that. That's I want to know what the color blue sounds like.
You know what? I actually, I have it on my phone. I have like 15 tabs open on Google Chrome on my phone of just like things I need to download. Oh, it's literally just called Harsh Digital No. Oh no, Harsh Digital Nose
Harsh digital
by
nose.
yeah. It converts two images into two oscillator waveforms.
I-
It looks pretty rudimentary, but like, damn it, this seems like it could be fun.
Holy shit! Like I want to know what the Mona Lisa sounds like. That's where my brain
Yeah,
goes.
right,
Take all the classic
right.
paintings of like the Renaissance era and let's see what they sound like.
Yeah, right.
Holy shit,
Uh,
man! You're boggling my mind right now. I really want to get this shit now. I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down. I'm
it's
gonna download it.
it, dude, yeah, Mike beat me to it at this point. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's in terms of just like creating samples for sample packs. It's usually just it's usually yeah, just doing super weird stuff. Uh, and Ableton playing with the really just making samples is more or less just me playing with a bunch of random stuff. Like say for some of the kicks that I've made in this pack that I'm making now, I just used a bunch of like presets of Ableton's corpus or just stuff to give it just stuff to try out. I don't know.
I
Just
love it.
trying shit.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That's how free flowing you are. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's just do what you want. And then turning really obtuse sound design and sounds into songs that people can dance to.
I love that. You know,
Uh,
Tynan, it's such a great fucking conversation with you, man. Now you have new music coming out, you have a sample pack coming out, and your creativity, in my opinion, knows no bounds. I really appreciate your
Thank
time,
you.
man. And I don't know. I don't know what else there is left to say, but other than I'm wishing you the absolute best. Maybe sometime next year, I got to get you back on the show to kind of like follow up, see what's going on,
Oh,
if you're down for
dude,
it.
yeah, no, we gotta do this in a year to see if the predictions were
I
correct.
know. I love it. Well, my man, Tynan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I love you. You're incredibly talented, man, and I cannot
Hey,
wait to see what the future holds for you, man.
dude, thank you so much for having me on. I love you too. Have a good life. If I don't talk to you again,
Oh, you will,
you
man.
know.
We will talk again. Trust me.
Oh, we will talk again. But I'm just saying, like, just
Yeah,
be a good person. That's all.
I love
I don't
that.
know. I tried to be cool and philosophical in my sign off, and it didn't work. You have to keep this in though. You have to keep this in.
I will. I promise. This whole
Okay.
entire thing, it's staying in.
Okay.